There's a moment a lot of people hit after they've been doing embodiment work for a while. And it's usually confusing because on the surface, everything looks right. They're more aware of their body, they notice sensations sooner, they can track breath, posture, tension. They might even feel more in their body than they ever have before. Their boundaries look good, they curate their environments, and yet, when real pressure shows up, especially unexpectedly, conflict, urgency, exposure, responsibility, the old reactions come back. The body awareness vanishes. The breath shortens. Attention will tunnel or it'll scatter. And the system behaves exactly as it always has. That's usually when people start wondering whether embodiment actually works or whether they're missing something. Now, before we go further, this is another one where knowing your orientation helps enormously. If you have not taken our Somatic Skins Quiz yet, first of all, it's fun. But second, it's worth doing early because embodiment fails for very different reasons depending on how your nervous system handles pressure. Without that context, people will often double down on the wrong practices or the wrong sequence. And I want everything I share to be as personal and applicable as possible. Okay, so here's the core issue. Embodiment is not the same as capacity. You can feel your body more clearly and still lack the raw ability to remain organized when intensity arises. Awareness alone doesn't train the system to stay. It lets you watch yourself leave in higher resolution with better reasons around it. Internal pressure is the real test. Pressure comes from many places. Internally, strong emotions, conflicting impulses, suppressed anger, desire that can't be expressed, fear that isn't being avoided anymore. Even stillness, for some, can generate a type of pressure when the system is used to distraction. If the nervous system doesn't have the capacity to withstand that pressure, embodiment collapses the moment it matters. Not because the practice was wrong or doesn't work, but because the load exceeded what the system could hold. This is often where embodiment becomes performative without anyone intending it to. People can adopt intelligent embodied language. They can adopt embodied aesthetics, even embodied rituals, while they're still organizing under pressure in the exact ways they always have. I want to look at this through two different skins because the failure mode doesn't look the same. So let's take the warrior. For the warrior skin, embodiment often looks like posture, strength, presence, control of movement. And those things matter. But if they're not trained under sufficient internal load, they remain surface level. A warrior might stand well, move well, even breathe well, until something challenges their sense of competence or authority. Then their internal pressure will spike and the system tightens, over-controls, or dissociates from its sensation entirely in order to perform. Without raw capacity, embodiment becomes something the warrior does, not something they remain in contact with when pressure is applied. This is why practices like heavy lifting are so instructive. A deadlift doesn't just demand good form. It demands that the system can tolerate a spike in internal pressure without fragmenting. Attention has to unify. Breath must organize. Tension must distribute rather than concentrate. Over time, the warrior learns to stay inside that sensation while intensity rises. Embodiment stops being a pose, and it becomes a condition that holds under load. Now, in contrast, let's look at the asset, often the empath. For this skin, embodiment often begins with sensation, emotion, relational awareness. They feel deeply, they track subtle shifts, they notice internal movement quickly, But when pressure increases, especially pressure that feels claustrophobic or inescapable, the system wants out. Embodiment collapses, not into control, but into escape. Dissociation, distraction, merging with others, or numbing. Slow breathing practices are critical here, not because they calm the system, but because they teach the asset how to stay present as internal pressure builds. As the breath slows and CO2 rises, sensation intensifies. I feel this as almost like drowning. So the urge to flee appears, and training happens by staying. Over time, the asset learns that presence is survivable, even when it's uncomfortable. Embodiment becomes stable rather than porous. And this is the distinction that matters. If your embodiment practice does not increase your tolerance for internal pressure, it'll fail precisely when life demands the most from you. It will feel real in calm conditions, and it'll vanish in charged ones. That's not a flaw in embodiment, but it is a misunderstanding of what embodiment requires. Raw capacity comes first, and then awareness rides on top of it. This is why the Somatic Skins book, link below, spends so much time on capacity cultivation rather than just awareness and observation techniques. Different nervous systems need different forms of pressure to adapt. Without that specificity, people practice a lot, but they change very little. And that's also why inside the Prestige, embodiment is always trained live in events we call simulators. Not to overwhelm the system, but to reveal edges where capacity holds and where it doesn't. Because that's where the real development begins. Embodiment isn't something that you access when things are easy. It's something that remains when they're not. If you want to go deeper with this work, there's 2 ways to do so. First, consider joining us for a season in the Prestige. Second, if you want to know why your embodiment hasn't translated, do start with the quiz. It'll show you where your system still loses organization and what kind of capacity training actually changes that. And that's what we do. Thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. It's so fun to share with you. Please do consider liking and subscribing. Helps the channel out, and I will see you next time.